Hello and welcome to those of you who've just joined us. I'm Laura Stebbing, co-CEO of accelerateHER. I'm extremely excited to introduce this session on redefining workplaces and technology with Wellbeing First. 2020 has changed the way all of us work, and it's really time that our workplaces and the technology that we use catches up with that. I'm delighted to hand over to Riva Misra, our wonderful moderator, to kick off this discussion. Riva is the founder and CEO of Walking on Earth. Walking on Earth is a digital wellness platform that connects individuals with science-backed tools, resources, and practitioners to take control of their health and well-being. She's passionate about using technology as a force for good. Riva, over to you.
Thank you, Laura, for the kind introduction. It's a pleasure to be here today with Rana and Margareta to discuss how we can harness the power of technology to prioritize workplace well-being. There really could not be a more important time to discuss this issue, and it's wonderful to be here with two tech leaders who have been driving forward this conversation for a while. To start off with a quick round of introductions, Rana is the co-founder and CEO of accelerateHER, an MIT spin-out on a mission to humanize technology. Rana is the author of the newly released book, Girl Decoded, a scientist's quest to reclaim our humanity by bringing emotional intelligence to technology. Rana is a passionate advocate for humanizing technology, ethics, and diversity, and has been recognized on Fortune's 40 Under 40 list and one of Forbes' top 50 women in tech. Rana is a World Economic Forum Young Global Leader and Young President's Organization member. Margareta is the Chief Digital Officer of Dell Technologies in the UK, where she supports clients through their digital and security transformations. Previously, Margareta led senior director roles at Ernst & Young and PwC, and also ran successful startups focused on food sustainability and building social networks. As well as this, Margareta is a keen advocate of STEM and supports a number of UK-based mentoring programs to encourage female talent. Welcome. To start off, I think it's interesting because the pandemic has completely upended all of our normal working practices, and work and life has just, blurred together. We were speaking about how, suddenly we're seeing our co-workers no longer as just employees, we're seeing them as spouses or parents or caregivers. And this has really allowed us to humanize our workplaces. But at the same time, it's also blurred the boundaries between work and life, leading to, not being able to put a stop to our work timings and back-to-back Zoom meetings, and often led to burnout. So, it would be interesting to hear both of your views on how you found leading tech organizations in this time of lockdown, and any patterns that you've seen emerging during this time.
I go first?
Go for it, Rana, yeah.
Well, thank you for having us. It is a very kind of front and center topic. So when COVID first hit, I remember a couple of weeks in, I realized I was sitting in these back-to-back Zoom meetings, and I made a decision to lead with empathy and put myself out there and hoping that will give permission to my team to be more open and reciprocate. And so I remember in one of our all hands on deck meetings, I said, guys, I'm realizing I'm in back-to-back Zoom meetings all the time. I don't even have time to feed my kids lunch or do laundry or even go out for a walk. And I said, how about everybody else? And everybody was like, yes, that's same here. And together we agreed that we will give ourselves permission to block times on our calendar to basically say lunch with kids, do not schedule, right? And I think that simple change in behavior signaled to everybody that we are going to be flexible. We're going to be empathetic. We realize that everybody has their own challenges that are very unique in these really tough times. And that was really powerful. And I think, it did not affect productivity. What I found is that people are still very energized. They want to be productive. They want to hit goals, but they want to be able to do it flexibly.
Yeah, I tend to agree, Rana. I think absolutely. I think I was saying earlier on, but Michael Dell sent out a note to all of us right across the board, all leaders, all staff across Dell Technologies, just giving us permission to work in a very flexible way. We've always had remote working, and so it wasn't new to us. But I think he realized fairly early on in this that this is going to be here for a while, and we need to adapt and we need to build resilience. And so really just trying to encourage us to try and build it around our own work lives, and be flexible, whether that is taking more breaks, whether it's starting later in the day, caring for elderly family or a younger family, whatever it might be. And so I think certainly from a personal perspective, I found it quite a journey, because initially you just get sucked into the rhythm of Zoom calls back to back, a bit like you, Rana. And I found I had to catch myself, and we run quite an extensive mental health network. And so as part of that, we kind of started sharing insights and stories about how we all finding it. And everybody kind of was pretty honest and said, this is pretty tough going. What we thought about avoiding tube times and busy networking, commuting times, we've replaced by more and more calls. So I think that the note from Michael kind of helped just have that kind of leadership blessing as such to go, make this work for you, whatever way you need to. And then I think we all kind of, as a leadership team, kind of came together and went, right, we're going to work this in whatever way we can. And so simple things that we've got yoga classes in the morning, first thing, we don't expect people to work around family time. It's okay to have your family on a Zoom call as well. And now we get to see, as you said, Riva, the extended family, and we know more about each other than we may never have had known when we were sitting beside each other. So it's kind of widened that conversation and that intimacy of, we've become colleagues, but we've also become friends through this journey.
Yeah. One thing this so resonates with me. One thing again, just to kind of model the behavior that I've been doing, I tell people, you see my Zoom background, this Zoom background looks great. But if I turn the laptop just a little to the left or a little to the right, you see the chaos. And, if my kids are around, I'll say, hey, Adam, come say hi to everybody. And I think that just it normalizes it and it humanizes it, and it encourages others to do the same. So empathy is really important in all of this, I think.
Yeah, empathy, and I think the ability for you both to be vulnerable and be honest, and be unafraid of saying this is how we're feeling today and this is what the current situation is like.
Yeah, I think that vulnerability, a bit of Brené Brown has given us all the encouragement to talk about our vulnerability, but I think it's so true, and you couldn't touch on a more topical point around being honest about our emotions through this period, because it's been such a period of uncertainty and it continues. And so being able to be really honest and open about that has been a really welcome shift in a lot of large corporate workplaces.
Yeah, I think, the individual level, I think that's key, but then also thinking about the collective level. So how we can still maintain the sense of community and connection amongst our teams when we're all viewing each other on tiny tiles on Zoom day after. Yeah. What are steps that you think that we can do, perhaps using technology, which at the moment can be seen as a way to separate us from each other? How can we actually use technology as a way to bring us together during this time?
Well, we've kind of adapted regular kind of monthly cooking courses. So we'll do somebody will set out, somebody that's a really good chef might teach us all how to make proper brownies, and we'll show each other kitchens and family get involved. Then there's simple things like the Wellbeing focus on greater Wellbeing practices, whether it's yoga or talking about our feelings on a regular basis. So we've kind of community sessions as well. That's all been introduced, and that's all relatively recent. It's only been since the pandemic that we've kind of brought this in. General coffees, we have a regular catch up every couple of days, and it's not about work. You talk about what's going on in your world, and we really make sure that we don't go into talking and lapsing about work. So it's a bit of a discipline on that front. So I guess we're learning all the time, Riva, and there's new techniques coming out. Obviously, technology has really enabled that. Who would have thought that I'd be able to learn how to make proper brownies by, a Zoom call? But we have, and it works. And I know one of the teams, at 5 o'clock today, one of the teams is going to do regular Friday drinks and coffees. That those kind of new little protocols and practices are coming in, and I think they're here to stay.
I think I'm going to steal the cooking classes idea. Would that be okay?
It worked really well, actually. I was quite dubious about it. But I mean, everybody got involved, and it was just such a wonderful family event. So, yeah. And those that you wouldn't think, or, you know, you just have these preconceived ideas about your colleagues. But actually, we're all human and we all just want to get through this. And so it was a really fun, lively thing to do. And we actually built in a couple of yoga moves while the cookies were in the oven as well. So I think you can kind of iterate as you go, but it's just about making it fun and bringing us closer together in whatever way you can. And technology has really opened our eyes to being able to do that.
Absolutely.
I think one thing that, again, like really resonates is kind of the prioritization of mental health, and making time to support each other through this mentally, you know, physical safety, of course, is key, but mental safety and mental wellness is important too. So we have what we call Wellness Wednesday, and it's a 1 hour in the middle of the day, and we encourage the team. We have, you know, we talk about burnout, we talk about like journaling, goal setting, pivoting, right? All of these things at a very personal level. We also instituted donutting. It's integrated into Slack, so it's awesome, and it pairs you randomly with people in the company. And I just love this. It's a 30-minute donut session, whatever, and we don't talk about work. And it's just to check in, like, how are you doing? Like, what is it like? You know, we're not as global as you guys are, Margareta, but we're still global. And you know, it's like, how is it in Egypt? How is it in the UK? Like, are you guys out and about or at home? Like, just human conversations. We found that that's been really powerful.
That's a brilliant idea. I might steal that one from you, Rana. Yeah.
I love it.
It's amazing how simple but effective, you know, these small changes can be in drastically building cohesion and community and improving employee well-being. I think, you know, it's also fascinating because you've said that a lot of these practices didn't exist before the pandemic, and you know, people often think about this time as upending our workplace practices and forcing us, because of the turmoil we've been put in, to prioritize our well-being. But do you think that, you know, actually we could emerge stronger from this pandemic and view it in a sense, and you know, with a positive light, and actually say that we will emerge in terms of workplace culture stronger than we were before?
Yeah, I hope so. I think, you know, it's been a really difficult time, and people have lost very close family members and watched people be quite sick. And I think you remember those that have been there for you through really lonely, isolated periods. And so I think by default, you feel a natural affinity, potentially closer to colleagues, actually, when you've gone through tough times. And I know we've had quite a bit of reach out to staff that are living on their own, that have gone through, that have potentially been a bit more isolated than those that are potentially surrounded by close family members. And so I hope that we are going to build a culture that is more inclusive, that is a greater sense of belonging that comes with that, that we wouldn't have potentially had in a large office where we're corporate and we're walking in and out and we're rushing from one meeting to the next. I think this has been a much more personal journey. And so, yeah, I really do hope, Rifa, that this stays and that we cultivate this even more so, actually, to support each other. But I think that sense of community has grown and evolved and will continue to grow as we evolve through this kind of journey and recovery period as well.
I found that it, if you have the right kind of innovation mindset, you can really do things in a very creative way and ends up being better than the way you've always done it. So for example, we have an annual internship program. We usually host about 15 or so interns in the office, and they are some, you know, split between high school students and undergrads and postgrads. So when the pandemic hit, we said, okay, that's not going to work out. So we canceled the whole thing and we sat on it for like a couple of weeks, really bummed. And then we were like, let's do this virtually. So it ended up being a much bigger program. We were able to, one of the things we really committed to is the diversity of the pool of applicants we want to draw from. Usually we get like these super like highly educated kids who have access to opportunities, quite privileged. And we were like, no, let's tap into people who ordinarily would not know about us and would think that they are not good enough. And it was incredible. And these kids were so motivated. We ended up having them do a make-a-thon, and the amount of idea related to actually how can emotion AI technology change how we connect and communicate online. And the amount of innovation and drive and commitment to inclusion was just phenomenal. So I guess it is, of course, really tough and challenging, but there is room for creativity and innovation.
An important point you touched on is the ability to change and adapt. And I think that's what we've seen in the companies that have thrived in the scenario and, shifted their cultures to really prioritize employees are the ones that have been open to adapting and innovating. Now, I think it's also interesting to think about now as we're moving into more of a hybrid model. So we're going from remote only to hybrid. And there's been a lot of talk about, particularly about safety, physical safety and logistics around people going back to work. But, I think an equally important topic is also how we support people emotionally through this period of going back to work and this transition. And we're talking about technology in terms of physical safety, but I think something we're not really talking about in terms of technology is the emotional well-being. And I think, Rana, in terms of your work, I'd be really interested to hear how we can bring technology in to emotionally support people through this time.
You know what is really fascinating is only 10% of how we communicate is in the choice of words we use. 90% is nonverbal, and it's split equally between your facial expressions, your gestures, and your vocal intonations. So imagine if you can capture that information, given that we're online like all the time, and create a baseline for an individual. And then we know that there are facial and vocal biomarkers of stress, of anxiety, of depression, Parkinson's, autism, right? So now you can have this incredible data about a person's emotional and mental well-being. And, with the right privacy considerations in place, you could make that data available to the individual, to their family, to a clinician. So I really think there's an opportunity to revolutionize how we think about mental health, because we potentially have objective data to apply to this problem. So I'm really excited about that. I really think the technology's there. It's just a matter of finding the right scalable platform to bring it forward.
Interesting. Okay. And are there particular examples that you're both implementing now in your workplaces as you move towards a hybrid model, to put emotional well-being at the forefront?
Yeah, well, I think Rana's points are amazing, Rana. It's wonderful to hear those insights coming through. I think simple techniques that we're putting in place is, and actually working with Microsoft as well, taking more breaks, right? And making sure that meetings aren't an hour long, with 45 minutes or 25 minutes, that we build it in so that the days are not back to back all the time. And so using technology to really drive that. I think the cultivation of communities, just to share things that are well-being focused. And I love the idea of the Wellbeing Wednesday idea. So more of that and leveraging kind of the data around that to give us greater insights. Mental health platforms, meditation sessions, all of that we've kind of introduced, online yoga classes. And I think we'll do lots more of that. And then I think with medical access to medication and to counselors and to medical support as well, I mean, the whole telemedicine play is only just amplified and will get further accelerated. And I think, look forward to seeing how we advance that over the next while, working with some of our big medical partners on that one.
Yeah, absolutely.
One more example to share. So when COVID hit, my book was supposed to come out on April 21st. And I was lined up to do all these like in-person book tours and book talks. And then this pandemic happened, and we had to hustle and like pivot, right? And so I ended up doing a lot of virtual book talks and book events and virtual book signing and whatnot. And akin to what we're doing right now, like if we were in person, we would see the audience and we would be able to riff off of the energy in the audience and adapt, right, in real time. And you can't do that right now. And I find it very unsettling and hard. But imagine if we had emotion AI technology integrated into our video platforms, and it could capture the audience engagement somehow, show it in a bar graph or like some colored bubble diagram or whatever, emojis, right? And it would just give you a sense of a shared experience, which is what I think we're all like craving. So I think technology will play a really big role in reimagining what these digital online experiences can be, whether it be a learning experience, an audience engagement, a telehealth experience. So I'm excited to see where that takes us.
That is fascinating. And it's almost like this time has forced us to accelerate and prioritize these aspects that should have been prioritized long before.
And I think, as you said, Rana, just touching on it, allows us to be a lot more creative. Like, who would have thought, the use of sentiment and analysis will really help us pivot, business models. But it's true, right? I think we're seeing digital banking is continuing to get further accelerated. In the last 6 months, I've seen functionality changes that I've been waiting on for 2 or 3 years, and I think we're getting feedback on digital business models now that we should have made a while ago, but I guess the platform or the demand wasn't there. So I think we're going to see a whole bolt of innovation coming through from this period, and I think it'll only get accelerated, as you said, and the technology's there. I think the demand is there, and people are a lot more comfortable using digital channels now, and we're also getting a lot more aware about privacy and where that touches on and how far we want to go with that, that balance of safety and risk and privacy and where it, the outcomes lie.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, we're getting a lot more comfortable with it, but I do also think it's something that will need to be placed at the forefront as technology starts becoming more and more integral to all parts of our life. And, I think for the first time, actually, the human element of AI is being prioritized as much as the other aspects, when usually it lags behind and has to do the catching up afterwards. And so if you were to imagine, a workforce in the future in, say, 2030, that had all these elements of using technology to humanize the workplace, what would that ideal look like for both of you?
Oh, Margareta, you go first.
Yeah, we're having this live debate at the moment, actually, around the future of work and what does that look like. In the immediate term, I think we're going to see significant shifts around collaboration. Business model changes are there already. We're seeing, a much greater take-up of digital services. I think businesses are fully digitalized. And actually, we're seeing this real shift between traditional analog businesses and digital skills, where people are migrating and trying to learn as quickly as possible how to adapt to life on Zoom or Teams and then deliver their business on those systems as well. I think the ecosystem and the partner play is going to take more of a role. And even though it has up until now, I think open collaboration with partners is going to be even more important in this new dawn. The future of work for us, I think, will require a look at kind of how we innovate further around these delivery models that we've got, working closer with new partners, with different kinds of partners, and I think tapping more into kind of the play that Rana's got around AI and listening and taking that feedback on board, because we've got access to it now, right? And so I think, we'll just iterate faster, and I think we'll probably innovate faster as well over the next while. So the future of work is going to be really, really interesting. I don't see us returning back to too many physical offices going forward. I think it'll be on a select basis, and it'll be a soft return to work for many organizations. But I think that the days of long haul commutes and standing in sweaty tube stations is over, hopefully for most of us. And when we do get together, the time we spend is going to be spent really in honest kind of collaboration and very focused, but also connecting with each other again and catching up. So I think it's going to be a very different kind of workplace that comes out of this at the end of the day, Riva. And I look forward to it. I think, this is something that we've been hoping that would happen for a while. And I think this pandemic has, although it's been very difficult, I think it presents huge opportunities for us to reshape and reimagine our daily work life and the timetable of how we work as well, and even our dress code and how we turn up,
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think it's forced us to just consider all of our normal working practices that we took for granted. And we've realized actually, it's so much better and more efficient and productive.
And also just a sense of balance. I think certainly from a very personal perspective, I have a much greater appreciation for my own personal health and balance, and even nature outside, which I didn't even realize had beautiful trees just on my doorstep until this pandemic, like really simple things. But I think that has been something that's been a nice kind of awakening for me.
Mm.
Yeah, I do think this pandemic has been, for me at least, very humbling. In the same way, like I think I took a lot of things for granted. I was always like, our family was always on the go, and this just allowed us to take a step back and really appreciate kind of the relationships in our lives that really matter. I also think as a business, and the World Economic Forum just came out with this responsible leadership report. One in particular, one of the tenets really resonates with me, which is stakeholder inclusion, right? And all of your stakeholders. And I think this pandemic has really forced, and all of the social injustices that are, underlying all of that, has prioritized our thinking around who are the stakeholders. And it's not just your investors, it's not just the team, it's really a lot broader. It's the community at large. And what's the role of businesses in all of that? And I know Dell is very obviously on the forefront of all of that, supporting diversity and inclusion and equity.
But I think you're right, Rana. I really do feel like we've kind of turned a corner here around being honestly having a conversation around purpose. What is our true purpose? Right. And I think it's been quite refreshing to see those organizations that have kind of said, you know what, profit and the bottom line obviously is really important, but purpose is the ultimate driver right now. And it's kind of cast, it's really encouraged all of us to kind of sit back as large corporates and go, really, what are we here to do? And what is the legacy that we want to leave behind? And what do we want to be known for, right? And for us as a tech company, it's about leaving it better than the way we found it and actually driving further in human progress. And I know many of our big partners are the exact same. They're really kind of gone back to what do we really believe in and what are the grassroots of our values and revisiting that. And so I think you're spot on. It's been a really humbling process and something that we all kind of welcome, actually. It's taken us a bit by surprise, but something that is here to stay.
Hopefully we'll be better off, right?
Yeah. And even just the point around sustainability, like a green recovery and the focus on our kind of carbon footprint, I think that's come forward as well. And then, as you touched on, inequality, like democratizing technology and making sure that everybody has access to it has been something that's certainly come through for us, is saying, okay, who has access to the right devices? How are children learning? How are they going to learn in the future? What's the right way? How do we get this technology to them the fastest way?
Yeah. I think, as I hear you both speak, something that really resounds is underlying theme of authenticity and placing authenticity central to the way that you both lead and the way you want to build your cultures, which I find personally very inspiring.
Yeah, I think, like, I do think we're having that really honest discussion around values. And I think if you're kind of at times when it's really hard and people are losing loved ones and family are under pressure, I think being authentic really counts. And I just think people can see through when an organization is being a bit, facetious or not being honest around what the true core purpose or motivator is. So I think this period has kind of washed out a lot of that noise, and we're kind of getting back to what are the basics and what do we stand for.
Absolutely. Rana and Margareta, we are at accelerateHER, so I think it would be nice to take a step back and just touch briefly on your journeys as women in tech, and whether there are key lessons that you can give to the audience listening today about your journeys and how you found leading as women in tech in the workplace.
So I grew up in the Middle East, and I had to kind of figure out how to navigate the cultural norms and expectations of being a nice Egyptian girl. And I find myself having to do that all over again in the tech industry, especially AI, which is very male dominated. I guess I had to, you're going to meet a lot of naysayers, but I kind of had this realization at some point that I'm sometimes my biggest naysayer. Like, I have so much inner doubt and this Debbie Downer voice in my head that sometimes stops me from doing what I know is the right thing to do, or kind of, leaning into an opportunity that is risk-taking or outside of my comfort zone. And I guess I would tell everybody who's tuned in don't be the biggest obstacle in your own way, right?
Yeah, I'd second that as well. I think we can really self-sabotage ourselves, particularly as women, right? We tend to overanalyze and second guess, and we go back and we really scrutinize ourselves. We can be our own worst enemy, actually, at times. I think the thing that really has helped me with my career path is I've had a couple of really good, strong role models. And one particular female that she was just a really dynamic, she still is a really dynamic character. And she's a really original thinker, even down to her dress taste, really out there. And she would just always encourage me. And so she lives in New Zealand. And I always kind of have her every now and then when I get a bit of self-doubt, which happens quite regularly, as we do. I kind of think I have her in the back of my head, like sitting on my shoulder going, go there, you need to push the boundaries. And I think you're right, it can be quite lonely. There isn't too many senior females around. We need to support each other. I think Madeleine Albright got the expression, if you don't help other females, then you're not going to help anybody. So I think she had a wonderful expression. I've forgotten it to the top of my head, but I think there really is a point on all of us to help each other and to help young women get into technology. And we want to see greater representation. Like it really is incumbent on all of us to try and drive that representation and encourage young females to learn and to grow and develop their career paths. And I think sometimes we stop ourselves. There's nothing worse than, a senior female member not helping young talent come through. So I think I'd encourage anybody, find the right role model and be brave and back yourself, as Rana said.
Yeah, thank you. That's very inspiring advice. And finally, the final question before we end, if you had to pick, one thing, Rana, from your field of humanizing emotional AI, that's the most exciting thing to come out of 2020, and Margareta, in terms of your work at Dell as the Chief Digital Innovation Officer, what would you pick as, the one key exciting insight?
I think for me, it's like rediscovering the importance of empathy, like rediscovering empathy. I love that we're finally realizing that we live in such a polarized world and that empathy is going to bring us back together. So that would be my one.
Yeah, I think it's kind of similar actually on the softer side. I think the big discovery has been balance. We talk about it all the time and we throw it out there, but it's actually really hard to get. And I was kind of forced to adjust and face it myself and go, how out of balance was my life before? Just one thing after another. And so I think balance and potentially gratitude, I just feel really grateful getting through this period and I'm working in a job that I really enjoy and being surrounded by people that, I can learn from, that I like as well. They're my friends as well as my colleagues. So I do feel this sense of real gratitude right now.
Yeah, thank you both. Thank you for this fascinating discussion and for sharing such valuable insights on this topic that could not be more pertinent and valuable to us at the moment.
Thank you, Eva, for hosting us. It is such an important subject, and the more we can really stress the importance of well-being, alongside purpose, the better. So I think we just need strong talent to come out and talk about this and really raise the flag for greater focus on well-being all around, because these are hard times, and who knows how long this is going to stay. So we want to build resilience and collaboration and community all the way.
And start with the small things, right? Like I've taken a few notes from what you shared, Margareta, and I will take it back to our team and implement it. Like it doesn't have to be big actions. Yeah. Small behavior changes can be helpful.
I know. I can't wait to start on the Wellbeing Wednesdays and the donutting. Great advice.
Thank you, just all three of you, for that incredibly insightful discussion. And Margareta, I totally agree with you. That quote, Madeleine Albright, I think it's a special place in hell. There's a special place in hell for women that don't help other women. And I'm with you 100%. Like that's what we've got to be all about. So yeah, thank you for all three of you being women that I know do that to your core. And that is helping other women. And thanks for everyone that's listening in. Please do stick around for our next session with Professor Dame Donna Kinnair, who's the CEO of the Royal College of Nursing.